So, Commissioner, so this project is a project known as the LeFrak-10th. We are here tonight for an amended final site plan approval. We are asking for parking deviation, signage deviation, and relief from one or two conditions that were imposed upon the project at the time that it received its preliminary approval. The preliminary approval was granted at the end of 2006. It was memorialized at the beginning of 2007. And in fact, that approval required the LeFrak-10th project along with the Embankment project, which was approved at the same time. Both projects were approved pursuant to preliminary site plan approval. It required the projects to provide one-to-one parking through a valet parking system by providing on-site parking on the LeFrak-10th site, on the Embankment site, and also on a third site, which we're going to call the Erie lot tonight, which is a third parking lot. What we're asking for tonight from the board is we're asking to change that approval so that instead of providing one-to-one parking, we're providing parking at a 0.75% ratio. And we're asking for relief from the valet parking requirement. Mr. Collins is here tonight. He's going to explain to us a parking plan that was approved for the Embankment site in 2014 when it received final site plan approval. We're going to ask you tonight, we're going to explain that plan to you, and we're going to essentially ask you for the same approval that the Embankment received for the LeFrak-10th. And then we're going to explain that to you by showing you a PowerPoint presentation and breaking it down one side at a time so you can understand exactly what we're asking for. So, I'd like the board to recognize Mr. Collins' qualifications as a professional planner. He's testified many times before this board.
Yes, Mr. Collins.
And we have Mr. Collins.
Yes, I do.
Now, Mr. Collins, you're a member of Dresden Robbins, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And the revetment house exhibit that's on the screen right now, was that prepared by Dresden Robbins?
Yes, it was.
And can you explain to us briefly what that plan shows? And I'd like you to start with the yellow highlighted buildings at the top of the screen.
Yes, we're looking at the screen, the building, yellow building to the right is called the Roosevelt. It's an apartment structure owned by Newport's rental building. Moving to the west, your left is the Lincoln. Again, same thing, apartment building owned by Newport. The skipping the block, you come further west to the Embankment house, which was, as you see, final approval, that is under construction. And then you have the LeFrak-10th house, which is the subject of the next application. Also on this exhibit, to the upper portion of it, to the north, are two parking lots. The one immediately north of the Lincoln is used as parking by the Lincoln apartment building, and the other one, which is we'll refer to as the Erie Street parking facility, at 74 spaces, and it is does not have a parking allocated to any of the Newport projects at this time, but is really part of it. But I think the approval might have had something with the Embankment.
So just to be clear also, because you can see it on the screen, just so the planning board members, here's the same exact thing that's on the screen, the same exact highlighting, the same exact sites. Also, is that show the Newport parking garage?
Right, and the blue tone is the existing Newport Center parking garage, which services the mall, but also provides parking to the Hamilton Park neighborhood at a reduced fee.
All right, now we're going to take you through each site one at a time. So the first site that we're going to focus on, which is an approved site, is the Embankment site. And the reason we're going to focus on that is because what we're going to show you is that the LeFrak-10th project, which share parking with the embankment site. So we'll start with the embankment because it's already under construction and it will be in service by the time the revetment site is built. So, Ed, there's 163 residential, Ed, let me ask you a question. You reviewed all the plans that are before this board, correct?
Yes, I am.
And those plans show that there's 163 residential units I'm sorry. The embankment site is already approved for 163 residential units.
That's correct.
And it has 123 parking spaces on that site, which is the yellow highlighted site that showed on the graphic that we showed before, correct?
123 parking spaces in total, 86 are on site, same site as the building, and 37 parking spaces are provided what are referred to before as the Erie Street one. That totals 123 spaces. And then that's also a 0.75 parking ratio.
So the embankment is shown there on the yellow, and then the Erie Street lot is the one that's to the north, but shares the same lot, basically, yes?
It's northeast of the embankment, yes.
So there's a total of 123 parking spaces, 86 on site, 37 off site, and that was approved by the planning board in 2014 at a 0.75 ratio, correct?
That's correct, along with 14 new spaces will be created on the street as part of the improvements to the culture.
Now, just to be clear, the Erie Street lot that Ed described, that's northeast of the embankment, and how many spaces are on that site?
There are 74 spaces here today. The lot is developed, it's paved, it's striped, and there are 74 spaces on site.
And that's a permanent parking lot, correct?
That's correct. It received planning board approval. I can't recall when, but it was approved, constructed, and it's operational.
Okay. And that site, all 74 spaces are available for use for the embankment or the revetment parking. Is that correct?
Yes, and my understanding is that there are some short-term leases, but none of the parking spaces are currently being used by Newport projects, and there are no long-term leases, so they will become available for other Newport projects as they're built.
Okay. The project we're here on tonight, the revetment. Let's explain to the board what we're proposing and what we're asking.
This is very similar to what was presented to us for the embankment that is approved. We have 96 parking spaces on site, however, in this case, rather than the 86. We are offering for 30 off-site spaces, which will then be on the embankment site across Pole Street. And then those 30 spaces for the embankment will be replaced by 30 more spaces in the Erie lot. In total, we'll have 126 spaces. All spaces will be self-parking, and the ratio actually is a little bit over 0.75 to 0.77. And then like the embankment project, the revetment project will result in 14 new on-street spaces on Monmouth Street, and that will be as a result of improvements to the street, relocation of the curbing, repaving, etc., which you'll find on the site plan that was presented.
And the site plan when presented is going to show that there's 163 residential units being proposed, correct?
That's correct.
And that's the same number of units that was proposed in 2007 and approved at the program site plan approval.
Right, consistent with the preliminary plan.
So to go back to the graphic, the parking plan for the revetment site that we're here on tonight is going to use 96 spaces on site. It's going to use 30 spaces from the embankment site, which is directly across the street, so there's going to be a shared parking arrangement. And then the embankment site is going to shift and use parking in the Erie Street lot, which currently has 74 spaces available. So between those three lots, that's the parking plan that we're proposing tonight for the revetment. And you can see it right there on this graph. So between the two sites, how many residential units are
Well, both buildings have the same number of units, 163, so we're going to have 326 units in total. 182 on-site spaces between both sites, and then we have 67 off-site spaces allocated to these two buildings for a total of 249 parking spaces, which is a ratio of 0.76, again, slightly above the variance that we're asking here. And then there will be about 7 spaces left over in the Erie line.
And those spaces will be used for either the Embankment or that Airbnb, correct?
That's correct. And if they are utilized, they'll bring our parking ratio up to 0.79, just under 8.8 per unit.
We'll have a total of 256 spaces according to that slide, correct?
That's correct.
And all projects will create 28 new street spaces. Is that correct according to the plans?
That's correct, and those are available to the general public. And people living in Hampton Park, people who visit the area, it's given the public right away, so it's open to the public.
Okay, so we're asking for parking deviation. What is the statistical basis for what is the reason why? What do we base our parking request for a parking variance on? We're asking for a 0.75 variance. What's the basis for that? Can you explain? Do you have any data to support it?
Yes. In general, Jersey City's population, there's a significant number of households that don't have any cars whatsoever. What I did was look up in the U.S. Census
Can
data.
you start again? We couldn't hear the first part of your statement.
As a general consideration, there's a number of households in Jersey City without any vehicles. It's pretty high. It's a significantly high number. I think it's 38% citywide. But what I did was I looked at the current census, looking at 07302 zip code, which is the downtown area, in Housing Park. I looked at it for renters, because that's what these buildings will be, the rental apartments. And in looking at those numbers, there are 40.8% of the households, rental households, have no cars. 50% of households, one car. 8.3% have 2 cars, and then 0.9% have 3, one more. I then did a weighted average of how many vehicles that would work out to per household on average, and that would be 0.6975, so essentially 0.7 per household. That kind of number sort of coincides with what we were looking at, and that's one of the things that we utilized in coming up with our 0.75 number. And so I think that's just statistically back.
So let's just explain to the commissioners a little bit. When we say use the U.S. Census, what census did we use? How current was our information?
The information is very current. They updated or projected, estimated each year going forward. I looked at the 2014 numbers, and that's what these numbers are. They vary very little from 2010 on, so I think again these numbers are statistically valid.
And the U.S. Census, what is that typically used for in other ways? Is that considered to be a reliable document to use for statistics?
Absolutely. The population statistics that are found in the census are utilized to draw, for instance, political balance, awards are adjusted every 10 years, or based on those numbers. Congressional budgets are every 10 years based on those numbers. Federal government uses them in terms of grant programs, things like that nature, where they look at especially the population these days in terms of grants or allocations. So the numbers are considered to be valid and important.
Is it typically used by planners and planning departments and planning boards? So one of the things that we're relying on in asking the board for this variance, which is the 0.75 variance, is the information that you discerned from the United States Census, correct?
Correct.
And then the other resource that we're asking, that we're basing this on, is the Jersey City Planning Board's map that we just showed. Put the word right on this slide.
Yes.
And both of those support a 0.75 parking ratio. Do they not?
That's correct.
Do we have any local actual data based upon other important projects that support our request for this variance?
Yes, we received statistical data from Newport itself. The Lincoln Park building has been operational for several years, more than so.
Is the Lincoln's current parking shown on the screen right now?
Yes, that's correct. That's right now. That building has 153 units. It's and they have 98 on-site parking spaces. We're actually doing a lot behind it. It's part of the same development parcel. And when Newport reviewed the order of parking usage, they determined that there were 82 residents that had parking spaces, or used parking spaces on site, and another 22 of the residents used parking in the wall. Again, that's a reduced rate, it was $100 a month, and so there was a total of 104 automobile parking spaces being utilized for 153 units, which is about 0.69, I think it is. So it's in the same range. If they were all falling 0.69, 0.7, they're all right there.
And so the information that we're presenting tonight is as of January 2016.
That's it. It's current information.
And on the Lincoln site, there's 16 spaces that are already being used, correct?
Well, yes, because they do have 98 spaces, and only 82 are being spoken.
So based upon the actual parking usage at the Lincoln, it's within the 0.75 ratio that we're asking for.
That's right.
Is there another building that we took a look at in terms of regulation?
Yes, Roosevelt is the first one from the furthest east. It's the closest to the mall parking lot. The wall garage does provide parking for the Roosevelt. That's how it was approved as part of the site plan approval. And in this instance, there are only 24 spaces, I believe it is. There's 38 spaces in the wall that are used by residents of the Roosevelt. There are other 2 spaces on site that are used by commercial, and there's 2 other spaces that are available. But the ratio of usage in this case is only 0.28. That's an older building, more operational for a long period of time.
Not like last one, but I think it's 36 spaces according to the graphic that's shown on
I do see that now.
the. So now, this building is across the street from the mall, correct?
Yes.
So let's go back to the parking map. And the reason that was approved using the mall garage is simply because it's right across the street, correct?
Right, it's directly across from the neighborhood.
So for as long as that building's there, the mall garage has to keep available parking spaces that are necessary for the parking. Correct.
According to the site plan approval, correct.
That's 60 spaces.
Total 60, which 36 are now being used.
So again, you have another building that has a parking ratio that's far less than 0.75 for the rest of the board.
That's right.
Now, let's explain to the board why we're talking about the mall parking. Is there a parking program in place for Hamilton Park as well as which includes the Roosevelt and Lincoln, that allows residents of that neighborhood to use the mall garage.
Right, any residents of the Town Park neighborhood, actually even beyond RCS neighborhood, for instance, it's close proximity, can rent a space in the mall parking garage at a reduced monthly fee of $100 per month. And at this time, there are 191 people from the neighborhood that park there. 36 of them are in Roseville. Another 22 are from the Lincoln. And 133 residents are from the general neighborhood. So they're currently being used in that manner. The Embankment and the Embankment will also be eligible if there's people in there who would rather park in the mall. People who may be able to use their cars as often might opt for that option rather than having on site or in the year round.
And there's virtually, the graphic shows us 3,700 or so spaces in that mall garage, correct?
That's right.
So that can always be there as a resource for this neighborhood.
Correct.
Now, let's break it down. We have, we just said from the previous graphic, there's 133 non-Newport residents that use the mall parking garage, correct?
Yes.
Can you explain this map to the board members?
Yes, we were provided addresses of the people who are renting spaces in the mall and then plotted them on the same area that we used to show the parking layout and the arrangement of the buildings. And these show the locations of the people who are renting there. There's not 190 stars or 130 stars here because we just put one at each address. For instance, Roosevelt has 1 star, Lincoln has 1 star, but there's multiple people at those addresses. So this just gives you more of a geographic orientation as to where people are coming from. Some as close as being between Vermont and Erie, some as far as being at Brunswick.
And so I think the point of this graphic is that this the Newport mall garage is presently being used as a parking resource for the entire neighborhood, correct?
That's correct.
And even people who live west of Hamilton Park are using the mall as a parking resource.
Right, there are several stars, half dozen stars who are beyond those. And then beyond the question.
So we're asking for a variance tonight based upon really 3 things. Census data from the U.S. government and the city of Jersey City regarding car ownership. We're providing an analysis of parking usage from the Roosevelt and the Lincoln, which is below the 0.75 ratio. And we're providing, and we're pointing out that the mall provides a parking resource for the entire neighborhood. The Batman or the Embankment, the people who live there could, if they want to pay $100 a month, use that as a parking resource also, correct?
That's right.
And is that the basis for our variance?
That's the basis for our variance. It goes to show that granting the variance will not result in any substantial detriment to the general welfare of the public good. It's clear in my mind that we will never add to the parking problem that currently exists because at any time there's still parking available in related to this project. These people who live there are not eligible to receive parking permits from the parking authority, so they will not have that ability. And then further beyond that, if there is any demand over the really approaching 0.8 per unit, that the wall would further mitigate any impact. So I think we look at that would be the negative criteria, which is not a substantial detriment to the general welfare, nor to the intent of the redevelopment plan in terms of providing parking, because we feel that we're providing more than adequate parking on site or in another related remote location, so no substantial detriment. In terms of the beneficial aspects of the project, I think it speaks for itself. Further, the building will provide $300,000 for green open space or improvements there too, as part of the requirements of the plan. It also will, as part of the requirements of the plan, continue to maintain the embankment, which is considered a historic resource, and that will be maintained consistent with the plan as well. So I think you look at those two aspects, and you see that, in my opinion, that can be granted, variance can be granted under the C2 criteria for the zoning regulations.
Based upon the data provided, do you believe the professionals agree certainty that the Embankment house has 123 parking spaces, 126 parking spaces available to it? That is adequate parking for this site?
Yes, in my professional opinion, like the professional certainty, that should be no matter the requirement that anyone would require.
There's one thing that I'd like to add to Ed's testimony. There is a parking ordinance which is in effect in the city that basically says that if a building has on-site parking, then a resident of that building cannot get a parking pass to park on the street from the New Jersey City parking lot. I think we're probably well aware that ordinance has been in effect for several years. I wanted to make sure, as part of this presentation, that the Roosevelt building and that the Lincoln building were both being properly considered by the Jersey City Parking Authority under that ordinance. So I made inquiry with the executive director of the Jersey City Parking Authority, Mary Perret, and I asked her to tell me if any residents of the Lincoln building or the Roosevelt building were actually had parking passes so that they would be able to park on the streets of the city of Hamilton Park neighborhood. And she provided me with an email, which with the board's permission, I'd like to edit it in the record. I can read it to you word for word. It says, "Dear James, as per your request, the Parking Enforcement Division of the City of Jersey City has reviewed our records regarding permits issued in Zone 6. As of this date, we are unable to find any permits issued to residents of 204 10th Street, owned by HP Lincoln, that's the Lincoln building, or 180 10th Street, owned by Roosevelt Urban Renewal, that's the Roosevelt building. So there are no parking passes issued to folks in that building, and there should be, because there's still on-site parking available in both of those parking lots. And Mr. Ray went on to tell me that should any of these folks in these buildings apply for an on-site on-street permit, that they would have to get a letter from our management company indicating that our parking was over capacity. Now, so since we have parking available in both of those buildings, the management company would never issue such a letter. So I think all I'm trying to point out to you is that based upon this email, those buildings are self-sufficient in terms of parking. They're not burdening the neighborhood. As far as parking, on-street parking pass process. A lot of people. Ed, can you testify about one more thing for us? We're asking for a sign regulation, correct?
Yes,
The plans show that before the board that we're asking for 3 signs.
correct. There are 2 signs at the top of the building, one facing to the south, one facing to the north. They're part of the architectural design of the building. They're sort of wayfinding or identification signs to the building.
And then there's a third sign that's on the front door.
Right. The third sign is to be in transit over the new entryway, and it's a pedestrian scale sign. That's for people who are walking on the street or looking to enter the building and identifies the building. Because if you're on the sidewalk, obviously, you're not going to be able to look up over the existing embankment that's there, the old railroad embankment, and then look up to the top of the building. That's more for pedestrian scale environment.
The redevelopment plan on one side.
Just one thing, that's right.
Is there any detriment to us getting 2 more signs in this case?
No, because the signs on the upper part of the building, which would be 2 additional signs, really are, they're out of the pedestrian plane. They're more geared to identifying the building from a distance. They're part of the architectural design of the front of the building. And they're pretty, I would say, consistent with what you expect in this style of building. This building goes sort of industrial character, so it has that kind of feel that would be the name of what that building would be. I think it's not out of character, resulting in such a protection to either the tenant result or the purpose of the work.
At the end of the testimony, if it would please the board, members of the public have questions for Mr. Pollard. I would ask you to allow them to ask any questions.
I'm sure we have
And
questions for Ed.
I'm sorry.
No. Quick one, Ed. The 14 new street spaces that we're talking about, just so we're all clear, those spaces are not available to the residents of this building.
That's correct, because they still don't have the intellectual parking permit. People who are visiting can come just as they do now or elsewhere within the time period that they're permitted. But that would be still open in that regard, and of course open to anybody with District 6 permit.
Okay.
So the point is they're for the public use, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, one thing on that, you spoke about visitor parking. Now, that area is zone parking.
Yes.
So we're saying that any of the residents of these buildings can get parking for visitor parking space.
No.
Those 14 spots cannot be used for visitor parking. If a visitor comes, they have to go to either the new wall or one of these other lots.
If they're going to be on street for a longer period of time than permitted within the 2-hour limit during the day, then they have to go to the mall and pay to park. Or if it's less than 2 hours, obviously they can park within the limits of the ordinance.
Now, one thing you did is you explained that it's $100 a month for parking. What's the fees to get a lot?
The fees at Roosevelt are $130 a month. The fees at the Lincoln are $130 a month. The Embankment and the Rebecca are not online yet. They would be at market rate. We don't know, but I guess whatever the market will bear at the time, I guess if you use the Rebecca and you use the Roosevelt and Lincoln as your basis, in that neighborhood, parking is going right now $130 a month.
And the agreement that is in place for the Newport parking, what's the time frame on that? 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 100 years?
Commissioner, there's no agreement at all. It's a voluntary use of the garage by Newport. There's no long-term parking agreement in place with anybody. It's simply the parking garage has spaces available. So the Newport management said, let's offer them to our own residents and let's offer them to the Hamilton Park residents at a discount of $100 a spot. So that could be taken away tomorrow, or it could stay for the next 10 years. The parking spaces are there. The garage is not, it's underutilized. There's plenty of parking available. So that's been in place for at least a decade, that arrangement, is my understanding.
Mr. McCann, real quick. I'd like to